Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going a little deeper than usual. We're not just looking at the history of oil or the economics of it all.
No, we're really getting into the philosophical side. The sources you sent over, they frame this brilliantly.
They do.
They ask us to see gasoline not just as a fuel, but as a kind of moral force, a substance that completely reshaped ideas of freedom, of abundance, and human character itself.
Okay, let's unpack that.
Right.
The core metaphor, and I love this, is that gasoline is a promise. And it's such a simple promise. We can go anywhere at any time. That idea, that immediate unlimited mobility, it changed everything.
It really did. But that promise leads right to the counter question, which is really the mission of our deep dive today.
Let's do that.
When people can go anywhere, instantly,
Right.
do they still know where they're actually going?
That's the paradox, isn't it? We're tracing this shift from a society that was, frankly, terrified of shortage.
The fear of running out, a very real, tangible fear.
To one that is now dealing with the tragedy of surplus, of having too much.
And understanding that shift, it is absolutely key to analyzing almost every modern crisis we see, whether it's energy, tech, whatever.
How so?
Well, the sources make this chilling point that abundance, it doesn't always lead to freedom. It just makes human desire more confident.
And confident desire.
Demands power. It demands control. And that's where integrity gets tested.
So here's how we're going to trace that journey. We're looking at 3 stages. First, the incredibly painful, slow birth of mobility.
It's a great story.
Then the rise of the gas station as this sort of holy land.
The low lane of commerce, yeah.
And finally, the moral disaster. The Teapot Dome scandal.
And we start where all big changes start. In failure, in pain, and in slowness.
The sources open with this amazing historical anecdote. It's 1919, and a young Lieutenant Colonel, Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Totally unknown at the time.
Right. He's on this massive cross-country military convoy. This wasn't some road trip. It was an expedition to see if you could even move an army across the country with machines.
And you have to picture this. It's not one car. It's a whole convoy. We're talking over 40 vehicles. Trucks, ambulances, repair cars, all trying to cross a country with basically no paved roads.
And the speed they were going is it's mind-boggling. Eisenhower logged the average speed for the whole trip at about 5.6 miles per hour.
Wow.
That is slower than a person can walk. He even said it himself. It was slower than a troop train.
It just shows you the gap, right? The huge gap between the promise of the machine and the actual reality of the infrastructure.
Total failure.
They had freedom in theory, but in practice, it was just frustration. The sources talk about constant breakdowns, trucks sinking in mud up to their axles, days where they only made it 3 or 4 miles.
Imagine that, having this powerful engine and you're moving slower than a horse and buggy. That feeling, that grinding, painful feeling of being stuck. It planted a seed in Eisenhower's mind.
A very profound one.
That slow crawl, that personal experience of being immobilized, it led directly to his push years later for the federal interstate highway system.
It's a perfect historical irony, isn't it? A massive failure of motion is what motivated the greatest system of motion we've ever built. And things changed so fast after that.
In what way?
Well, that was 1918. By the mid-1920s, the number of cars just exploded. You have Fordism, mass production. The middle class can suddenly afford a car.
And the whole economy reorients itself.
Yeah.
Gasoline, which was just this cheap, unwanted byproduct of making kerosene for lamps.
They practically gave it away.
Suddenly becomes the lifeblood of a new world. And that demand for mobility, it creates this urgent need for a structured supply.
And that gets us to the next stage, because if early travel was painful, early gasoline sales were just chaotic.
How so?
The sources describe it as, you'd buy it in cans and barrels, unbranded, stashed behind a warehouse or a general store. You had no idea what you were actually putting in your car.
It sounds like a transaction based on pure rumor.
Pretty much. And then comes the solution, what the sources call the new Holy Land.
The gas station.
The gas station.
Very
And
nice.
it sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. The station sold more than fuel. It sold a feeling of safety, of familiarity, a guarantee.
Why was that guarantee so important?
Because the card gives you freedom to go anywhere, but that act of fueling up, that's a moment of vulnerability. The branded gas stations solved that. They use these big, high symbols, stars, seashells, flying horses.
So when you're driving in the middle of nowhere,
And you see a familiar logo on a pole way up high, it's like seeing a friendly face. You know it's reliable, it's predictable, it's safe. It takes the chaos out of the equation.
and if we bring that forward to today, that psychological hook, That reliance on a familiar logo, it's exactly how we operate with our phones.
Absolutely.
You see the app icon, the payment symbol, and you just click. You trust the system. The brand means you don't have to think critically every single time.
That's the trade-off. It's incredible convenience, but we give up a little piece of our own scrutiny. And when gasoline becomes that vital, that convenience has a huge social cost.
I mean, price.
Yeah. Price fluctuations are no longer just economic news. They're immediate social triggers. They lead to political fights, public outrage, and this deep mistrust of the whole system.
And that reliance, that criticality, right, it set the stage for some major ethical failures. Which brings us to the ultimate test case.
Teapot Dome.
The Teapot Dome scandal. This is really the symbol of the moral danger that comes with controlling a critical resource.
It is. It happened in the early 1920s under President Harding, but its lessons are, well, they're timeless.
So for anyone who only knows the name, what was the scandal exactly?
In short, it was the secret leasing of federal oil reserves, specifically lands at Teapot Dome, Wyoming, and also Elk Hills in California. These weren't just any lands, they were naval reserves.
Meaning they were set aside for national security.
For the U.S. Navy. For future wars. These were strategic assets meant to defend the country.
And they were just leased out for private profit. Who was behind it?
The main figure was the Secretary of the Interior, a man named Albert B. Fall. He basically took control of these reserves and leased them with no competitive bidding to a couple of powerful oil tycoons.
And the corruption was blatant.
Shockingly so. Fall got what they called interest-free loans. One was $100,000 in cash.
In cash?
Delivered in a small black bag. He also got gifts of livestock, other cash payments. It was brazen.
So when a resource becomes that fundamental, controlling it isn't just about money. It's like you're controlling the societal operating system.
That's a perfect way to put it. It is the operating system. If you control the oil for the Navy, you have leverage over military policy. If you control domestic supply, you control the price of everything. The reward is no longer just small change. It's control over the very structure of society.
And the press at the time, they knew how big this was. The sources say that Washington was just flooded with oil, that it was the only thing anyone was talking about.
Yeah, the nation's lifeblood had been sold off. It proves the sort of psychological rule. When you label something a common good, but give a very small group of people the power to control it, temptation is inevitable. It becomes a character test.
And Fall failed that test.
Catastrophically. It was the first time a U.S. cabinet member ever went to prison for a crime committed in office. It showed the public that the very people meant to guard the nation's resources were the ones selling them off. The crisis wasn't about oil, really.
It was about trust.
It was a crisis of confidence. It proved that when the resource is that critical, the character of the person holding the key is everything.
So if we take all of that, the slow, painful crawl, the blind trust in a logo, the massive political betrayal, and we try to synthesize it, what does it tell us about this freedom gasoline promised?
We can actually distill it down into 3 critical laws, 3 laws of the gasoline soul that apply directly to our lives today.
Okay, what's the first one?
Rule 1. External freedom is exchanged for internal dependence. The beautiful illusion of the car is that feeling of being unlimited. Right? I can go anywhere.
But the reality is, to have that feeling, you need this huge, complex system behind you. Supply chains, infrastructure, payment systems.
So you trade true, rugged independence for this hyper-efficient reliance on a system you don't control.
Exactly. It's not chains of iron. It's chains of convenience. And those are much, much harder to see and even harder to break.
That makes a lot of sense. What's the second law?
Rule 2. When the market runs on whoever is fastest wins, ethics are forced to chase. We saw this in the early oil fields. There was no regulation. It was just this mad dash.
This fear of missing out.
A literal fear that your neighbor would drill faster and suck the oil out from under your land. So everyone drilled as fast and as wastefully as possible.
And that mentality is everywhere now. Tech, finance. It's not about what's right. It's about being first.
That's the question it forces. It shifts the priority from, is this right or wrong, to just, are we quick enough? Speed becomes the only moral metric because slowing down means you lose.
Which brings us to the final paradox, the test of abundance. Rule 3. Surplus kills endless. Not with hunger, but with illusion. When oil was gushing out of the ground, people genuinely believed it was endless. They thought they were in total control. They stopped planning for limits.
Like thinking you have infinite cloud storage, so you never have to decide what's important to keep. The surplus just paralyzes you.
Precisely. Surplus destroys order, it destroys prices, and it destroys trust. It's a different kind of fear. Scarcity, it creates fear because you might run out.
But
Surplus creates fear through disorientation. You lose your sense of direction because there are no clear limits anymore. And in both states, lack and excess people are very easy to manipulate.
So let's bring this all home. The story of gasoline is really the story of modern life and the moral challenges that come with abundance.
We can take these lessons from the gasoline soul and apply them directly to how we live now.
We've pulled out 4 key takeaways from this. Okay, lesson 1. Don't confuse the means at the end. Speed, the thing gasoline gave us, it isn't the same as direction. So you have to ask yourself, am I moving so fast for freedom, or am I just running to avoid making a hard choice about where I'm actually going?
Lesson 2. Set higher ethical standards for lifeblood resources. For us, that's money, it's power, it's data, our reputation. These are the critical engines of your life. And even a tiny stain, a small compromise in those areas can spread into a massive crisis of confidence.
Lesson 3. Don't let the fear of missing out control your character. This idea that whoever is fastest wins is mostly an illusion. The real cost of that speed is shallowness. The shallow gets swept away. The person who masters life is the one who knows when to slow down.
And finally, lesson 4. Surplus is the test of discipline. Shortage tests your endurance. Can you keep going? But surplus tests something much rarer.
Your ability to stop.
Your ability to stop. Real wisdom, especially today, is just knowing what is enough.
The entire story of the last century has been that journey. From Eisenhower's painful, slow crawl to the hyperspeed we live at today. We gained all this convenience, but we fell into this deep structural dependence.
And the key takeaway, I think, never changes. The problem was never the oil. It's the character of the person holding the key.
So the final challenge for you, the listener.
Don't just focus on filling the gas tank of your life, whether it's with money or data or whatever. Fill your consciousness. Because a life that's just running fast while you're asleep might go very far, but it will never, ever arrive at itself. True freedom today isn't about how fast you can go. It's about having the wisdom to pull over, turn the engine off, and consciously choose your direction. That choice, that is the real destination.